people about this great history because most people maybe like myself, were unaware of the fact that Egypt is black and it's ours. So I was like, well, what's the whole of why aren't we connecting with this? And I remember for years I wanted to go, but I just didn't really know how to get there. In other words. And I certainly didn't want to go alone. It just seemed so vast, and I was like, I didn't even know where to start. Um, but I took the initiative and I went alone, and I realized that some people may have kind of been going through some of the trepidation I was going through. So I decided at that point, you know what, let me just start telling people, you should go, visit Kemet and so forth. And once I visited Kemet, always had a camera in my hands, whether still camera, video camera, and I always wanted to document everything I saw. That same energy I took with me when I went to Sudan, you know, um, back in 2003, and actually went again in the following year with Dr. Jeffries. And that began the movie series, and we started with Nubia, the Untold Story. We did that like in 2005, 2006. Then followed that with the Tekken, um, which is uncovering the influence of ancient Egypt. That deals primarily with the influence that ancient Kemet has on the West in a visual context. And as we move forward, Hapi became, the current piece. But for us, Hapi had to be more than just a film. Being that we were already in the kind of the film industry, I saw what films do a lot of times. People, they watch it, but the impact is not as good as we like it to be. So before we started Happy, we decided that we were going to make it more than just a film. We were going to create what we affectionately call the Happy movement, which we're in now. And the Happy movement itself is this social movement that, we're seeing now, where we're trying to revive some of the elements that have been lost. I was very fortunate that I was around a lot of our great elders, and some which are now ancestors now, um, during certain periods, and that also, along with the talking of Black civilizations, helped my development. And I wanted to make sure that these, especially with this new age internet, that we are connecting with those roots. When we get this message out, we get this message across. Because there are a lot of people out there who have this information can help us get from points A to B. And I feel like Happy is a medium to accomplish that. So, and also when you think about this uh, this thing with the music piece, just being a part of that phase and that era, when I was in consciousness during the time, seeing how revolutionary it was in terms of impact. When you started thinking about doing something great, also connecting with the youth. So this movement is real, and we gotta keep it going. And to be honest with you, sometimes I just I feel like I'm along for the ride, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily um, orchestrating things. This thing we also have this. This for us. African sacred sciences or spirituality is a big part of who we are as Black folks, and it's something we need to connect with. So on an ancestral level, I feel like the messages and the signals we get is directly connected to the ancestral forces. So we say Ashe, and we just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I understand that exactly what you're talking about, brother Grant. You up in New York, and Sanada's doing this thing, and we got a lot of our scholars up in New York. But again, when we talking about a movement like this, it's definitely have to involve our youth. So, what do you
So
think where we at right now? I remember some years back talking to brother Kaba Kabane, and he said he was experiencing a change in a movement, and people were reaching out to him for his curriculum and to put it into their schools. And he's seen the change. On the ground in New York. I mean, as far as our youth are concerned, because it's hard deciphering and seeing where we're going, because at the same time, it seems like a lot of chaos and a lot of things is on right on the edge of exploding, in our country. But there's a conscious movement that is going on the same with our youth and our young adults. So, what's the flavor up in New York? How do you, with boots on the ground in New York? How do you feel about that?
I've seen the changes. Like I said, I was there I remember, I wouldn't say at its height, but during the time what we call first world, the institutions we had, like the African Poetry Theater. Like I've seen, what those spaces look like during those periods. When I say spaces in terms of like just the gathering, collective gathering. And I see what it looks like now. A lot of what it looks like now, I liken it to a couple of different things. One, there was a generational thing in terms of those people who were in those spaces by and large at the time were our parents. There were some youngsters there, and I had to be real. One of the youngsters kind of moving around, but most of the people were a lot older. There's also what I like to call the reverse migration. A lot of people have left a lot of these, these urban cities, and they've gone, south and other places. So that also kind of like directly impacted how places like particularly New York, how we operate. New York once upon a time was not really considered like a chocolate city, but we had concentrated hubs of black people, like we Harlem, certain parts of Brooklyn, or even certain parts of Queens also, where there was a lot of black people in those areas, where it was very easy in those concentration areas that we were able to, get mass gatherings and have a like mind being in one place. Right now, so the black family is very spread out. Atlanta is definitely a place that you may see that concentration still exists. And there are some things happening in Atlanta. One of the things that, with going back to the generational thing, I feel like sometimes of my age, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I feel the role of what Hapi plays is being an intermediary between a lot of the elders and this younger generation. We have to figure we need a better outreach approach to get some of the young people to understand that they're not school, and if they don't have certain terms around them, they're not going to have firsthand information or be around, great. So this thing we're fighting is kind of both fronts. I think why people were kind of migrating, and like, a lot of people left. New York, here in New York, probably like 50-60% of our black population, which is, us, really just mostly to the Carolinas. But, when you think about that, you think about the impact that has on, other institutions, you see now the numbers really, also people, um, taking over the legal labor transition, start to see a decline in those types of institutions that we had to keep the community thriving. That was also the backbone of the, where you with like the Dr. Benz and Dr. Clark and many other hosts of many others that come to speak. Not only that, they're also creating like programs, for the community or programs for people. So these are things that are essential, and we need to get these types of things back. So what we're doing here at Hapi is, like I said, we are using that blueprint, the blueprint of institutions, the blueprint of creating these spaces. But right now, we don't have a physical space, but we're utilizing the spirit of gathering, the spirit of collectively working together to make this happen. And Dr. James speaks always about the three C's in African culture. First, the three D's in European culture, African culture, three C's is communal, cooperative, and collective development. And these are things that we need to work on. And we need to really deal with the three C's, especially the communal, coming together, cooperative, working together. We have this thing where it's kind of hard sometimes for us to work together, but I got to tell you, I've been very proud of who we are in this Hapi movement. Just seeing, the black people are actually, the spirit of cooperation is there. Um, and that's something that, we need to kind of keep going forward.
Yeah.
Mm.
One of my guys is Dr. Charles Finch. He's in Atlanta, and he talks about uh, a time frame uh, somewhere around 2040 or whatever, about these cycles of this coming together and this enlightenment that is on the horizon. And timing is everything with when we're dealing with this type of consciousness, because a creator is out of time, meaning that, this little 20, 30, 40 years don't, when we're dealing with time and this ushering into this period of Aquarius where information is coming out like that and putting it together. And it kind of sometimes it seems a little sad when we have some of these great leaders like Martin Luther and Malcolm and all that. They never seen a lot of their works come to and our people come together and come to fruition. So you kind of like think that maybe they was there to keep the torch lit until the proper time was taken for this whole thing to unite. What's your thoughts on that? So you think, because I'm you just looking at this whole broad scheme of what's going on globally, and I mean you have to kind of like be dead not to feel some kind of energy taking place. What's your thoughts on that? As far as time.
A couple things come to mind. So the first thing that comes to mind is, when we think about history, particularly that of our Nile Valley history, one of the things that we have to be careful of is learning our history or studying it through the lens of other people, because oftentimes it's a cultural thing, and they're only going to interpret what they see, particularly in Egypt, through that of European lens, and that they cannot do that. But they are unable to interpret it through an African lens. On the other hand, then want to speak about Could a Black Person lived in a couple other movies, and those white directors make certain Black movies, and so a lot of times when making certain types of films, culturally you have to be able to interpret certain things and know what it's about. And I get that. So I kind of apply that same kind of methodology in terms of his historical past. So and I would say that because when we talk about there's a thing in Egypt a lot of times they say certain kings will usurp certain projects that other kings had. And a lot of times the way we feel is, the African thought process is it's the same spirit continuing. And you see themselves as being separate from and apart from the one before them, because it was an office they occupied, divine office, divine space, that they were all incarnations of what we call Haru or Horus. Right? And if you're occupying that space at that time, you're basically an embodiment of the person before you. So when you think in that terms, you think in terms of like those passing this torch. This real torch that we spoke of. It's one energy, it's one collective energy moving forward. And the other thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is this thing of Hapi. When we first thought about the naming of Hapi, the film itself and the film concept came up to be about 12 years ago, right after we Tekken. And I remember wanting to use something. Let me step back for a second. So the original copy of its blueprint and its originality before we really got to the economic piece was by and large dealing with the relationship between the kingdoms and the Nile. There's here, this Nubian shirt. These are the pharaohs of the what they call the 25th dynasty, the rulers, Shabaka, Taaqi, Pianki and their families, and the rulers that came from the Apatu era. And Apatu being one of the great states in the entire world, the entire ancient world, and most people know very little about it. But there was a relationship that Kemet Coach has. And a lot of times when you hear Egyptology speak of this relationship, it's one of enmity. You don't hear it as one of kinship and brotherhood or collective working together. And that's how they take Egypt, that's how they take Kemet out of Africa and place Egypt in the Middle East, is by creating enmity between Kemet and Coach. Now, all of the historical data that we have is that they work together, and also that Kemet was a product of Coach, not the other way around, but the way the story is told was always. So, Hapi, the name of the river, the Nile River itself, was one of the comments. We thought it would be called the film Hapi because he was talking essentially about the connection or the relationship between the two kingdoms. Now, that was the thought process again 12 years ago. I'm not thinking about what's called the Great Year. You mentioned Charles Finch. Charles Finch speaks heavily about the Great Year. The Great Year is a 24,000-year cycle that the Earth goes on for constellation. We just so happen to be in the age of Aquarius, which is also the we didn't know at that time just using the word Hapi and what it represented, just dealing with the river and everything like that, that we were also really going to the age of Hapi. So here's one of the things that we talk about the connection of ancestral guidance that, we're just kind of doing.
Mhm. That's amazing too how that connected, and I think that's a part of that energy because Dr. Finch talk about it. Some things is going on. That unseen world is going on unbeknownst to us. We don't see it, and but you can feel it. If you're alive and if you connected, you can feel it. Here, I want to throw a quick loaded question to you. Because you went exactly what I was thinking of because my brother turned me on, not turned me on, but I've been connecting a lot to lately to Sonata. I'm Sonata. Sayada TV. Sonata TV, and it's been some interesting guys. I learned some things. Brothers get into these debates. So the big debate seems to be still, some of the origins and some of the genesis, taking place on the African continent versus I don't know why we still call it the Middle East or the Sumer Mediterranean, Mesopotamian type of area, and that seems to be, coming back a debate about some of the origins, who got this from that, and as far as the Bible is concerned, did they get their stuff from Kemet, or did it come south? Because I've ran across some stuff, talking about that basically Egypt was the zenith of a lot of the cultures that came from the south, up into Egypt. And you talked about Egypt being or Kemet, born from Kush and things like that. What's your thought? Because they having heavy debates on the TV about the origins. And one brother brought up Sumer or Samaria and things of that nature. What's your thoughts and your research unveiled in your thought process?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting when I saw the title, I didn't watch the program. And I'm very, Brian and I are really good friends, and he and I talk about those things a lot in terms of, the debate. Let me say that. One of the first things that came to mind is Kemet has to be seen as an extension of other African cultures. And when you understand that, you see the origin as being much earlier. In fact, even when it comes down to this question of, again, Egyptology, in the dating of Kemet, there's a lot of debate in terms of how old Kemet actually the consensus is that it started around 3200 BC in terms of the formulation of a dynasty under King Rama or Mini. In fact, there's a lot of history that tells us Egypt is much older than that, right? That is what we call the coming together or the unity of the upper and lower kingdom. Upper Egypt being in the south and lower Egypt being in the north, or upper Kemet, lower and lower Kemet. And the reason why south is up and lower is north is because of the way the river flows. And now we're going to river, Hapi Turtle flows from south to north. And thus upper is in the south. So when we think about just in terms of going into the unification piece, what preceded unification of ancient Kemet, or what preceded unification of two lands, two kingdoms, and when the ruler came into power, a lot of times he would be known as the ruler of both lands. He always considered this element. When you think of the lands, you also have to consider what the boundaries was and consider further south, which I would call today Sudan. However, when you look at that piece, if you start to, analyze that the history goes back several thousand years prior to that, like the historical findings of Mount Hapi, one of the oldest physicists, I'm sorry, astrological arts or the ability to mark the Hellenic risings of the stars. You find that in a place, when up in Kemet, which goes back to 20,000 years ago, which is also connected to, what's considered like Adam calendar in South Africa, which
Right.
something thousands of years ago. So we
Right.
just have to make connections. We have to see that chemical older than they tell us. Even if you take it outside of the boundaries of modern day Egypt, you find elements of high prior to that. And again, once you go into the boundaries of the Kemet, you find things of Mount and others. So we just have to look at the civilized process and say, well, this is a long time doing what they were doing. They just don't develop science of the pyramids of the night. They just don't do these
That's
things.
what I said. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Place over through the time, And one of the other elements that we talk about, just the aspect of civilized process, is this language piece. There's always been a debate of cuneiform being an older script than the Metalensian. In fact, we learn now that cuneiform it wasn't necessarily a phonetic script in the sense of it had phonetic value to it. It was more sort of number system, whereas the Metalensian during that period had a phonetic value to it, meaning like there were letters that had sound so that they were able to kind of formulate their thought in writing. Cuneiform was more at that point grammatical system versus Metalensian was actually conveying messages from one place to another. You wrote the something down, you gave it to somebody, they would put them down. And that's and again, you think about Metalensian, it's always an origin in terms of it developed, size and one of the things when you think about it's forceful genesis, meaning that the Halley Desert is one of the elements when it comes to the formulation. I don't think if it wasn't for the Sahara encroaching on North Africa, we probably wouldn't have it. And the catalyst that really took the in the valleys when the rainforest in North Africa shifted, when the rainforest became the desert, people began to migrate. And this migration, several different types of people caused in Egypt or caused in Kenya to be a need for a uniform communication. So they had to develop a sense of a uniform writing system and a uniform way of speaking and understanding each other. So these were different groups, different parts of the continent that came together to form the world's greatest civilization.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that debate goes on. We're gonna let our brother Vince Robinson come in on the conversation. Brother Vince.
Yeah, I just wanted to shine the light on the event that's going to take place on Saturday, February 4th, 2023. It's going to be from 1 to 8 p.m. and it will live stream for those of you who cannot make it to New York. But if you can, you'll be going to the Jamaica Performing Arts Center. And again, you can go to hapifilm.com to get more information. They're going to have some profound speakers. One of your favorite brothers, Brother Antonio, the Hiawatha Comedy, that's a mouthful. Brother Rizza Islam is going to be there, Mpundishi Jehudimus, and one of our dearest and most profound brothers, Professor James Small, is going to be there. Also, Dr. Kenneth Harris, and then they're going to feature a live performance by the legendary brand Nubian Jamara Milton is going to be there, and our guy Amadeus Christ is going to be he's going to be showing his film Heavy is the Crown. So they're going to be clipped from Heavy is the Crown, and Amadeus also did the film Out of Darkness. So it's going to be a profound event there in New York, and Brother Taaqui is going to tell us all about it in a few moments, but we're going to break away for a few and come back. We are with Taaqiy Grant. He is the architect. I say that. Taaqiy is so modest. If you go on Facebook looking for his picture, you ain't going to find it. You're going to see Hapi Films. You ain't going to see Taaqiy. He ain't putting himself on blast. He's not all messed up with titles and all that other kind of stuff, but I'm just going to put it out there. Taaqiy is the architect of the Hapi Film movement, and we're honored to have him on the air with us. You're listening to 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE with your hosts, Antonio and Vince Robinson. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor.
Can you come with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is a quick question.
Well, I'm sorry. Say it again.
festival, the Kumba.
The arts festival. You know which one? Which one you talking? In Cleveland?
Yeah, Vince was talking about something earlier.
Oh, I think he's putting. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Black Local Artists of Cleveland, Kuumba. It's a direct, yeah, Kuumba. Yeah, that's the Swahili word for creativity.
Right.
Yeah, one of the 7 principles of Igbo Saba.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, no, I asked that because there's a sort of a correlation there between that. And
Welcome back.
Coming back.
360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE with your hosts, Antonio, yours truly, Vince Robinson, and our guest, Taaqiy Grant, who's dialed in from New York. He's on Facebook Live and YouTube with us right now. And his right hand, Felicia Harden, is also on with us. Welcome back. She was with us last Saturday, so we got to see her beautiful smiling face. You know, Taaqiy, I will never forget, as long as I live, the way Dr. Renoko Rashidi would light up whenever he was being interviewed by Felicia. It was the most amazing thing, you know, because Brother Rashidi, you know, he could be real intimidating at times. You know, he was one of those brothers you didn't want to get under his feathers because you know when he gave you that mean mug, he was like, oh, let me go find a corner somewhere. But whenever he was on the air with Felicia, he would just be smiling broadly from ear to ear. One of the best memories I have of him is that happening. But we want to talk about this great event that you're doing, and also, you know, part of the whole Hapi brand is really about Black economics. And we really want people to understand how important it is to have your destiny in hand by having land, language, and culture. You go back to Kemet, you know, you see those great places, you connect the dots, you understand how important it is for us to understand our past so we can understand our future, and then you connect the dots with brothers like James Small and Leonard Jeffries and Malefi Asante and all the greats who have put Afrocentricity on the forefront. Let's talk about how these things will merge when you put on this event next month.
You know, when you think about, I was actually the question when we were on the break about Kuumba, the arts festival and showcasing artists from the various different, artistic disciplines. First thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about it earlier in the broadcast was that's exactly the spirit of the Happy Day of Black Excellence. The Happy Day of Black Excellence is showcasing a Black genius through art. That is the spirit for what it is that we're doing. And it came up when brother Amir doing something in New York, premiering the film. We could actually go do something together. We actually kind of do together again. The three C's earlier, Dr. Jeffrey for Black people, who we are as a people. So we started thinking, he and I started getting to talking and thinking about, what we can do. And that became the cornerstone. So now we're for this extraordinary day. And it's amazing, here we are, because we're in a space in Google maintain competition with one another. But instead of like working opposite of each other, like come together and again be the good foundation for this. And so we realized that the foundation was the artistic expression of who we are. Everything else started to come into play. The speakers, because a lot of who is in this film are copies. So we were like, all right, well, we have now a second part of our program panels to be panels of people. We don't have to really like things, people that were in the film, things like that. So that just kind of worked out. And from there, it came into this, it kind of just kept developing into other things. You realize that speaking of art, we have to be as a part of it. Poetry and other expressions within artistic expression, visual art, and so forth. So that's a big part of this spiritual thing we talked about again, of kind of passing the torch. It's all about this who we are and kind of within who we are, rather than just living within the spirit. So everyone, if in the New York area, probably by all New Yorkers, the tri-state area, Jersey, Connecticut, Boston, so forth. You know, people on Long Island and I think New York, you're in the New York City area, you gotta come out. That's part of it. If not, the live stream is available for those people who watch homes throughout the world. It could be live streamed to a worldwide audience. You can watch it any place in the world. We have a huge audience of people that can be watching from the UK and also from the continent. So, particularly here in the context of the United States, helping families like, listen, be a part of this. And the time has actually been extended because the lineup is so robust. So now we went from 1 to 8 to actually 1 to 9. I slightly went over that. So this is the time now, it's 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern Standard. That's very important for the family listening, not maybe watching outside of the New York City area. The mine is 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. So just make sure you're on the West Coast that you plan 3 hours ahead because we're going to be on Eastern Standard Time. And I go to the family and the international family because people will be watching all together. So we just keep, we don't add the lineup anymore. We can't at this point, but we got to a point where we have to extend the time because it's just so robust. And again, there's so many different stars that you go on the stage but the true star is us. Celebrating, like I said about Black history, this misnomer history is more than just 28 days. We get that, but to celebrate this in February made it appropriate because it's who we are in terms of being Black excellence.
Well, it really does line up with the idea of a movement. You were speaking in terms of all those different lanes as far as culture is concerned and the need to bring all those things together. And when we think about Black history, as you said, we think about that 28-day thing, but truth of the matter is we have 7 principles that we should be living 365 days a year. And that's really what Hapi is all about. When you bring all those elements together, you bring creativity through culture and art, you bring cooperative economics into the picture. We've done a pivot just because of the experience that we've been through in the last couple of years. So now you're able to do something virtually and bring folks who perhaps can't afford to get there, or whatever the reason is, they might not be able to make that journey, but they will be able to get access to these great minds, the scholars, the musicians, and so forth and so on. And really, in this age of information and this age of pushback on critical race theory and understanding history and all that other kind of stuff, this is the antidote. It's that realization that you cannot depend on your oppressor to empower you, to tell you about yourself, to tell you how you can achieve greatness through understanding. You can't depend on them to do. So we have to do that ourselves, and that's what this is all about. Brother Taaqui, you mentioned going to Sudan. And you talk about Nubia, and everybody hears about Egypt and they think about what we know about Egypt today. But and I know that the folks who are over there right now, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but they're kind of like the custodians for our stuff, just like as Brother Renoka would say, the museums are repositories of stolen loot. Could you talk about how important it is to understand the full history of that part of the world and how we as Africans in the diaspora are connected to it?
Oh man, that's a big question. So I think I'm gonna start with this one. Let's just say for years, I'm gonna actually start like this. You're dealing with a European dominant culture by and large because history was rewritten. And when we think about reclaiming the now it orients history very differently in terms of putting it in perspective in respective place. A lot of history has been the Bible. A lot of history, a lot of domination has occurred, through the Bible, People are starting to come out of that a little bit now, but you think of, go back 500 years ago, when the Pope divided the world into three parts, the part of Pope, a lot of that was a so-called holy decree. So when you start to think about these things and how history and religion played a huge role in where we are now, you understand why the fight for the now is so important. What I mean by the fight for the now, because once you start to the legacy of Nile civilization being African, that now changes how people see, world history. Because now we have to start to question. So the question is about the origin of some of the mythological pieces of the Bible. We have to question the flood, the question, the Red Sea, all these different things that we've been taught. That, we have to begin to question those things. And you begin to question those things now, you begin to question who you are. And once you do that, you understand, just how domination takes place. And if you can control a mind, control a woman's mind, you don't have to worry about controlling her body. And this methodology of control or domination, it takes place in the mind and in the heart. Now about civilization, and creating our history, now we don't have that control. And Black people see themselves of civilization. For a long time, to see yourself as being civilized. You were civilized is to suggest at one time civil. Not to civilize yourself. And to understand that the good words, understanding who we are. They go through now about the culture and civilization. They went abroad to Asia and there's another place, the civilizing process. They civilized process with how, through that and religion was formulated years later. Our spiritual system, our secret science is the foundation of the world civilization. So when you think about, and that light is, it kind of brings into something that's happening now. We talk about CRT, critical race study, and the pushback on that. Well, there's a lot of pushback out of Egypt in terms of what they call, blackwashing. And there's certain groups of people, and there's a movement there actually developing. My 25 years going back to Egypt, I've never seen anything like this. There's this growing movement, particularly with young Egyptians, where they're starting to believe the notion that they are historically connected in a lot of ways to the pyramids, say that. And we're not going to say that there is no blood there because we foolish to say that. But they also have to accept the fact that, they are by and large a product of an immigrant culture that came in. Or immigrant, migration of people that came in from Asia and also parts of Europe. But there's this notion that we are trying to steal history. And, a lot of what happened, I don't know if you guys remember when we had this Detroit, the one Africa Power and Unity Conference. The one Africa Power and Unity Conference is a result of this fight right now. And there's a thing going on right now. We'll come back to that in a second. There's a thing going on right now with Kevin Hart, where they're actually trying to ban him from coming to Egypt, doing a show. February 21st, I believe it is. There's certain groups in Egypt that are lining and they have petitions to kind of stop him because he made the comment that, the pharaohs are black. We already know they're black. I don't understand why these people are trying to lie and say they aren't, because always, not even science tells us that they're black. We don't have to even get into this discourse. They don't want to discourse. They don't want to debate. They don't want to have an intellectual conversation about it. They just want to try to antagonize and try to frighten people. And that's kind of what happened to us in February. Our conference is set February 25th, 26th in Aswan, was set last year. We're planning on going to Egypt. We had 12 of the greatest scholars, and they were talking about the connectivity of African cultures. We weren't going to stay in trouble. We weren't going to just think about what people were doing outside of what was collectively in our group. But somehow or another, this gathering of Black people scared them. It scared them to the point where they wanted to, to start an attack. And the same case they have against kept up. And it's interesting when I started to really look at it side by side. It's really organizers those campaigns. So I realized now this is not only a design, a deliberate attack, and also, very calculated. So, that kind of, because and you scare tactics, fear was a big part of it, and certain people that were aligned with us at that time became very afraid for whatever reason. And this fear tactics that they used caused us to cancel not only that conference, but also trip that we had in February for last year. So it was 20 people. So it was like became this thing where we were trying to figure out the next step. The first step we did, we moved the conference um, to Detroit. And we changed the name from One Africa Returning to the source being Kemet, to One Africa Power and Unity. And I realized that this had occurred, and if we kind of stood together, we would have kind of been able to address some of the issues. Um, but that didn't happen. Thus, we realized, and the One Africa Conference really also part of the one happening next week here in the Happy Day of Black History. Thing of coming together, unifying, is extremely essential. Kind of maybe just think about where the true power really comes from. We talked about this spiritual alignment. Is another thing that kind of one of those kind of aha moments. When I looked closer at Hapi, I really realized that the symbol, the nectar, the glyph itself, what Hapi looks like. I realized Hapi is actually speaking of unity because it speaks about the unity of the lower kid. And that is the cornerstone of our organization. Without that unity, there is no change. They're looking at that, damn, this is what we need to understand, that there is no, whatever we want to call it, whatever we're calling it, if we have unity. Power, our true power, comes from our unity.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Antonio.
Because people need to know, man, how serious this is. Because we in a strife and a fight and a struggle for our origins, man. Our land mass and everything else is on the line here. This is what's going on because it's slowly taking it, man, and trying to take it back. So we in a fight to secure, man, our genesis, man, our origins, man. It's true.
We were not even looking at it from that perspective until last year this time. And it's literally almost a whole 4 years just going by. And I realized the fight we were in. I knew that we had enemies, but I didn't know how many more enemies we had. You start to make these movies, and there's certain positivity rise, certain level of negativity is going to rise to meet it. And with the wake call, and we realize that we're in a real fight. And we gotta kind of really now move very differently. We have to be more strategic in what we do. And that's really kind of like, it was a great loss, and there's a lot that came out of it, but there were some positive things that came out of it too, in terms of, again, this understanding the time that we're in. And it's real. A lot of times, the things don't happen to you, we don't understand, how real they are. And, when we think about, you mentioned earlier about the conspiracy theory, and sometimes people think that people just keep talking and making up these notions of that, trying to get this stuff is real, and we have forces that's going to oppose us on a physical and spiritual level. We got to be prepared for this, and if we're not prepared for this battle and this fight, we're going to lose. We also realize that we have to stop playing checkers while people are playing chess. I think that's one of the biggest things, is when we make moves, making 2 or 3 moves. And we have to be able to think 7 moves ahead and not think about just that first move, because we're trying to score it. Don't want to their power. Their power lies in lies. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The power lies in the lie. Once we remove the lie, we gain the power. They don't want us to remove the lie.
Yeah.
You know, they want to keep the lie going, keep the lie alive. If you keep the lie alive, that's what keeps people in darkness.
Right.
When people understand the truth of who they are and begin to shift out of this, you know, the spookism era and come to, you know, you look at that person in the mirror, then they don't have any more power over your mind.
Okay. Well, as we wind down, I just want to let folks know once again the event is called Black Excellence, Power, and Unity. Takes place Saturday, February 4th, 2023, at the Jamaica Performing Arts Center in Jamaica, New York. It's going to stream live from 1 to 9 p.m. There are vendor spaces available. There are going to be live performances by the legendary Grand Nubian Jamar Milton, and there will be discussions and panelists, including Professor James Small. There will also be Dr. Kenneth Harris, Dishi Jehudimus, Kaba Hiawatha Comedy, and Riza Islam. If you can't make it, you can go online and you can watch the whole thing via live stream. We are so happy that you were able to be with us this morning, Taaqui. Much success to you. Hopefully, you will have a packed house. I'm sure you will, because New York is huge and there's a lot of people there. So, you know, they'll be there. And those of us who can't make the trip will join online. Thanks for joining us once again. 360 Info Network.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes, real quick.
A couple things. The vendor spaces are all gone. And it's one of the collection of families from all around the world that are actually going to be in the house. We have a lot of people coming from throughout the country, from around the world. Dr. Susan Top has been really flying from Germany, she's from the Cameroon. So this is really also an expression of Pan-African unity as well. And the family, again, the collective African family, we work very hard with brothers in the UK, Andrew Muhammad from the Hidden Truth, and a lot of his folks would, you know, would be here as well. So this thing, Black unity, African unity, Pan-African unity, is really just an example of that.
Okay, very good. February 4th, y'all be there either in town or online. Brother Antonio, we about to go, bro.
Yeah, this is a serious time frame, y'all, and this is going to determine where we sit at as far as our being the people. This is a struggle. Don't be sleep talk about Super Bowl when folks trying to steal your heritage and your lineage.
With that, thanks for joining us again on 360 Info Network right here on 801490. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Thanks, Tone. You make it sound good every week, bro. We appreciate you. And we appreciate everybody that's out there listening and viewing us on YouTube and Facebook. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make it a great day, Cleveland and the rest of the world. Peace.
Peace.